Erev Tov, everyone. Erev Tov. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, therefore it must be Zeyde Story Corner. Of course, yeah, Zeyde Story Corner. Okay, so we're going to be picking up where we left off last week and probably starting some news stories tonight. So, good to have you all here this evening. Let's see what we have in the chat. We have Yair, we have Donald, and we have Marshall. So far, yeah. So, and others watching in the background, yeah. Others watching in the background. We know you're there, and we know that you can't get into the chat, but we're glad to have you here, everyone. We have Thanksgiving coming up here in a couple. Yes, we do. Yeah, and then right after the Hanukkah. Yeah, that's right. Hanukkah starts just right after Thanksgiving. Yeah, thank you. Thanksgiving. Yes, we have it. Yeah, we have Thanksgiving, and then we'll be going right into Hanukkah, and we hope everybody is going to have a wonderful Hanukkah, and with lots of gelt and lots of presents and stuff like that. So, shall we get going with the stories? Yes, we should. Yeah, okay. So let me put you on your camera. And here I am. Oh, look at me. I am in Eretz Israel. And I am at the hotel. Look at that. Look at that. You can see that. How nice that is. This is courtesy of our dear friend Marshall Reese, who purchased this backdrop for us so that we had a pretty backdrop for these stories. Very, very beautiful picture of Eretz Israel and the hotel and the wall and all these. You can see all the stuff up there. You can see stuff on people's roofs and everything. Of course, we've got it set so that you can't see so much, but we can see it all here. Okay, so this is a lot better background than we had before. So we are very happy with this. I'm sure you will think that it looks a lot better too. Okay, Richard has joined us. Okay, so without further ado, let us get on with our stories tonight. Okay. We are going to pick up where we left off. Now, remember last week we were talking about Lot and his wife and Sodom and Gomorrah, and we are going to finish that story. So we pick up where we left off last week. Actually, I think we back up just a little bit, and we talk about Lot's wife and how she treated the people that came around there. Okay, so just to refresh your memory. Okay, so on another occasion, a peddler came to her and said, I have 2 sacks of apples, for which the usual price is a silver shekel per sack. I am in need of cash, and so you may have both sacks of apples, and I will only charge you for one. That gives you 1 sack free. Lot's wife took 1 sack of apples, but did not pay the peddler a penny. Why don't you pay me? The peddler asked. I took the free sack, she replied. When he tried to argue, she set her dogs on him, and he barely escaped with his life. Okay, so this is where we pick up. Okay, Marilyn has joined us. Good to see you. Okay. The neighbors who heard about these incidents were filled with admiration for Lot's wife. It wasn't long before she forbade her daughters to speak either Hebrew or Aramaic, the language of Haran. In Sodom, behave like Sodomites, she instructed them. She also told them never to mention their great uncle Abraham and their great aunt Sarah. It is below our dignity as honorable citizens of Sodom to have an old fool in our family who believes in God and obeys his word, she said. One day, Lot's wife hired a drummer to walk the streets of Sodom and sing the praises of Lot. The drummer stood in the marketplace and called out, "My lord Lot, in his wisdom, is able to save from prison or death thieves, murderers, vandals, swindlers, and robbers. There has not been so great a defender of criminals as my employer since the days of the flood." A number of Lot's clients immediately increased. He became one of the most popular men in the city and was appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Sodom. His daughter, Bechira and Tzira, married two young Sodomites who were studying law under Lot. One thing annoyed Lot. He could not rid himself of his foreign accent, and sometimes he forgot himself and used Hebrew and Aramaic expressions. His wife and daughters were embarrassed by the fact that Lot could not hide his Hebrew origin. This was especially true when he drank too much. In Sodom, it was the custom to drink excessively. Lot often drank, and at such times he used phrases in Hebrew and shamed his family. One day, a messenger arrived with news that Abraham of Canaan was coming to visit Lot. Lot was beside himself. In Sodom, all men shaved, but Abraham wore a long white beard. He spoke only Hebrew or Aramaic, and what was worse, he did not believe in idols. He served the God who was said to have created the heaven and earth and whom none had ever seen. Lot knew in advance that the visit from his old-fashioned uncle could bring him only shame and disgrace. His wife and daughters were even more upset. Bechira in tears announced that if that old Hebrew uncle came to the house, they would leave. But Lot argued, "How can I not receive him? He is my father's brother. Besides, I am his heir. His wife Sarai is old and will certainly never bear a child." "You've been talking about that inheritance for years," Lot's wife said. "Abraham is almost 100 years old. It's time for him to die." "What do you want me to do? Kill him?" Lot asked. "Why not?" his wife replied. "If Sarah dies and he marries a young woman, he may still have an heir, and we won't get a shekel of his money." Lot could scarcely persuade his wife to let the old man come. Before long, Abraham arrived in Sodom. As a relative of the illustrious Lot, he was allowed to enter the city. But Abraham brought his nephew even more embarrassment than Lot had feared. His beard seemed even longer than before, and he carried a staff and a sack like a beggar. He was accompanied by 2 servants, Gabriel and Raphael, who were as outlandish in appearance as he. The first day, Abraham did something that grieved Lot immensely. He stood in the marketplace, and in a hoarse voice he called out, "People of Sodom, repent! Stop your thieving, swindling, murdering! Desist from abusing strangers, dishonoring your parents, and eating the flesh of animals while they still live. If you do not forsake your evil ways, God will destroy Sodom." The people who heard Abraham's words laughed at him and mocked him. "What God is that, you old fool?" one of them asked. "The God who created heaven and earth," Abraham replied. "A God who hates bloodshed and falsehood, cruelty and injustice? Where is this God of yours? Of what is he made? Stone? Gold? Copper? Ivory? Neither stone nor gold, nor copper nor ivory. No one carved or cast him," Abraham answered. "He cannot be seen. He has created the oceans, the mountains, the deserts, the people, and animals. He is all merciful and provides for all that lives." "Why did Lot allow this crazy uncle to come here?" one of the bystanders asked. Others pelted Abraham and his 2 companions with the dung of asses. "This is what happens when one admits strangers," said another. "Sooner or later, they bring other foreigners with them." "He should be deported," cried a man in the crowd. "No one need deport me," Abraham replied. "I do not want to stay, but I warn you for the last time, repent." But no one showed any sign of repentance. That evening in Lot's house, Abraham repeated his warning. "Sodom will be destroyed," he said to Lot. "If you want to remain alive, rise at dawn, take your family, and leave the city behind. Soon after sunrise, there will be nothing left of Sodom but sulfur and ashes." "The old man is insane," screamed Lot's wife, no longer able to contain her anger. Lot had ordered his servants to prepare a feast for Abraham and his companions. They had roasted a suckling pig, stewed beef in blood, and boiled a baby goat in its mother's milk. These were the delicacies of Sodom. But Abraham, Gabriel, and Raphael refused to eat, saying that such food was an abomination before God. Abraham asked that some unleavened bread be prepared for him. Lot's wife was mortified. Before her slaves, Bachira and Zerah felt shamed before their husbands. Outside Lot's house, a crowd gathered. They threw stones at the windows, demanding that Abraham and his companions be brought out so they could make sport and torture them according to the customs of Sodom. With great difficulty, Lot persuaded the rebel to leave. It was very late when Lot and his family went to bed, but Abraham and his companions did not retire. Lot, who could not sleep, overheard Abraham pleading with his God, "Wilt thou destroy the just with the wicked? If there be 50 just men in the city, wilt thou also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 just that there are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? What if there be 5 less than 50 just persons? What if there be found 40? What if there be 30 found there? What if there be 20 found there? What if 10 be found there?" Lot's wife too had awakened. "The old man is certainly not in his right mind," she said to Lot. "If you do not get rid of him tomorrow, I will leave you, and the court will make you turn over your entire fortune to me. You will have to pay me 1,000 shekels a week or go to jail." "I implore you to be quiet," Lot pleaded. Is it my fault that I have a silly old uncle?" "It is certainly not my fault," Lot's wife hissed. "Nor is it the fault of our daughters and sons-in-law. They won't be able to show their faces in the street. Even so, they call us the Hebrews. Whenever there is a disagreement, they yell, 'Dirty Hebrews,' and tell us to go back to Haran." Lot and his wife dozed off. The night was hot. A burning wind rose from the desert and blew fine hot sand through the cracks of the shutters. Jackals wailed in the distance. At dawn, when Lot got out of bed and looked out the window, he grew afraid. The sky was unusually red. The air was heavy and smelled of scorch and sulfur. The rising sun was the color of blood. Lot said to his wife, "Who knows, perhaps my uncle Abraham is right, and a catastrophe is about to befall us. Sometimes the insane have a sixth sense." "What should we do?" "Let's get out of the city," urged Lot. "That can't hurt. We'll accompany the old fool a short distance and then turn back." His wife disagreed. "If the neighbors see us leave, they'll think we've taken the old man's threats about the destruction of the city seriously. They'll accuse us of believing in Abraham's God, and if the elders hear about it, they will make us leave for good." "We'll say we are going on a picnic," Lot said. "Let's take a hamper of food and wine along." Lot's wife and daughter were finally persuaded, but Lot's son-in-law wanted nothing to do with the picnic. They whispered to each other that it was high time to rid of their father-in-law and his family. After much squabbling and haggling, Lot loaded a hamper of pork and a keg of wine on a donkey. Lot's wife did not lock the house because in Sodom a lock was of little value. Lock breaking was even studied by children in school. But the thieves' admiration for Lot would prevent them from robbing their beloved judge. Now, the sun had disappeared. The sky was overcast with yellowish clouds. The air became heavier and smelled of ashes and sulfur stronger. Flocks of crows flew about croaking. Vultures appeared. The camels and donkeys brayed. The oxen bellowed. Dogs barked. Cats meowed. The earth burned the soles of people's feet. The animals stampeded from the city. Even the rats and mice departed from Sodom in droves. The people of Sodom hurried to prostrate themselves before their clay, stone, silver, and gold idols in their temples. They promised sacrifices of cattle and human beings to placate what they believed was the wrath of their gods. Abraham and his companions, Lot and his family, had scarcely left the city on the road toward Zoar when a raging fire descended from the sky and turned Sodom into a furnace of smoke and flame. Abraham called to Lot and his family, "Don't look back, run with all your might. My house, my furniture, my clothes, my rugs, my furrows, my jewelry," wailed Lot's wife. She looked back, perhaps debating whether to return, and in that very instant became a pillar of salt. "Woe, woe, see what has happened to our mother," Lot's daughters screamed. Lot tried to take his wife's arm, but when he saw that she did not move, he put his hand to his mouth, and in fright, it tasted of salt. "Salt! My wife has turned to salt," he wailed. Abraham, however, urged them on, and only after they covered a good distance did he permit them to stop and look back. What had been a teeming city only a short while before was now a mountain of smoldering ashes. "Lot," Abraham said, "know you that my companions, Gabriel and Raphael, are angels. Now that you see the truth, repent and turn to God." "What truth? I believe neither in God nor in angels," Lot said. "But you see what has happened to Sodom," Abraham insisted. "The volcano erupted. It has nothing to do with your God and his angels." Turning to the angels, Abraham said, "He will remain as he is until he dies. Let's go on our way." "Uncle Abraham," Lot said, "will you first give me part of my inheritance? You will soon die, and I have no money left." "I cannot give you part of your inheritance," Abraham answered, "because my wife, Sarah, is to give birth to a son." Thus had the angels promised. Is that not so, Gabriel and Raphael? "Yes, it is true. Sarah, thy wife, shall bear thee a son." Are you saying that her old age, Sarah, will give birth to a son? Lot asked, astonished, and began to laugh. His daughters laughed with him. Why do you laugh, Lot? Gabriel said. Is there anything the Lord cannot do? Nonsense, superstition, Lot said. Tell your fairy tales to the fools of Canaan, not to me. I'm too clever to believe in such idiocy. Abraham said that Abraham and the angels continued on their way, leaving Lot and his daughters behind. Father, what are we to do now? Lot's daughters asked. I have lost my wife, and you have no more husbands, Lot replied. But we do have a keg of wine. They uncorked the wine keg and were soon completely drunk. After a while, they found a cave where they settled down and lived like savages. Except for defending criminals, there was nothing Lot knew how to do. His pampered daughters, who had learned little except how to eat, drink, and give orders to slaves and servants, and how to mock the poor, the beaten, and the sick, now lived in filth and sin. The evil city of Sodom was never rebuilt. It remained a desert where not even wild animals ventured. In time, Lot settled in some corrupt city and again became a champion of murderers, thieves, and swindlers. He never heard from Abraham again, but he no longer cared, because he learned from wandering peddlers that the angel had spoken the truth. There would be no inheritance for him. Abraham did not again visit his faithless nephew Lot and Lot's sinful daughters. Sarah bore Abraham a son, just as the angels had predicted. He was called Yitzhak. He, in turn, sired Yaakov, from whom the 12 tribes of Israel. And there we have it. So Reb Moshe has joined us. Reb Moshe in the house. How you like the background, Reb Moshe? Okay, I know you go there all the time, so this should look pretty familiar to you. Okay. This is a pretty good one. We look and see, we check the time here. Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to take our break right now, and then when we return, we shall continue with a new story called Rabbi Leib and the Witch Kunigunde. Okay, so stay tuned, and we be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. now, on with the show.
And we are back. Okay. So we are going to tell this story. It's called Rabbi Leib and the Witch Kunigunde. Rabbi Leib, the son of Sarah, and the witch Kunigunde were both miracle workers. The difference between them was that Rabbi Leib performed his wonders with the aid of divine power, and Kunigunde used the power of the devil. Kunigunde had a son, the famous brigand Bolvan, who robbed merchants on the roads. He had collected a fortune of stolen goods, which he hoarded in a cave. Although Bolvan did the actual hijacking, it was Kunigunde who made all the plans. By her witchcraft, she was able to make invisible the entrance to the cave where their loot was kept, so that the police could never find it. At 60, Kunigunde still had pitch-black hair and a smooth, fresh skin, and it is said she possessed a portion that kept her looking young. For years, Rabbi Leib and Kunigunde waged a silent war. Whenever Rabbi Leib gave a merchant an amulet to guard him against evil, Bolvan could neither rob nor harm him. This resulted in many losses for the brigand. Kunigunde tried to outwit Rabbi Leib, but his prayers usually provided stronger than her witchcraft. Rabbi Leib was so often the winner that finally Kunigunde could not help admiring him. And from admiration to love is but one step. However, Kunigunde could only love as a witch does. Here is the letter she wrote to Rabbi Leib. You, Leib, are the strongest man on earth, and I, Kunigunde, am the strongest woman. If we got married, we could rule the world. We could rob the greatest banks, empty the richest mints, and the mightiest rulers would tremble before us. And Rabbi Leib's reply, I don't want to rob banks or empty mints. I want to serve God and not the devil. I'd rather live with a snake than with you. When Kunigunde received Rabbi Leib's letter, her love for him became mixed with hatred. She vowed she would force him to marry her, then revenge herself on him. She wrote him again, You can't escape. You will fall into my clutches. You will marry me whether you like it or not, and you shall have the same bitter end as my husbands before you. It was known that Kunigunde, 5 times a widow, had in each case destroyed her husband. Rabbi Leib and Kunigunde both lived in the same huge forest. She had a luxurious underground house with a secret entrance through the hollow of a tree. He owned a small hut by a stream in which he would immerse himself each morning before prayers. He liked to pray among the trees. From time to time, he went to the village nearby to purchase food. Rabbi Leib ate neither meat nor fish, nor anything else that came from a living creature. He bought his scant provisions and always laid in a large supply of seeds for the birds of the forest. Every day, hundreds of them came to feed in the clearing in front of his hut. As he prayed, the birds sang and twittered, and their voices lifted his spirit and strengthened his faith. Suddenly, strange things began to happen to Rabbi Leib, and Rabbi Leib recognized them as the work of Kunigunde. Venomous snakes appeared near his hut and attacked the birds. At night, the howling of wild dogs disturbed him in his studies. One dawn he bathed in the stream. A strange little beast, not unlike a hedgehog, bit into his leg with its sharp teeth. Rabbi Leib uttered a holy incantation, and the beast let go, but the marks of its teeth remained behind. Rabbi Leib bought loaves of bread fresh from the oven in the village, but when he arrived home, the bread was moldy. Worms, mice, and rats invaded his hut. Rabbi Leib kept some fowl, which he never slaughtered. He loved the sound of the rooster crowing and the chickens cackling. One night, a weasel stole into his yard and killed them all. The water of his stream, which had always been crystal clear, suddenly became muddy and began to smell. One evening, when Rabbi Leib went into the forest to pray, he noticed a man covered with soot like a chimney sweep on the roof of his hut. The man carried a broom as long as a sapling and a thick coil of rope. He had wild eyes of a beast and pointed white teeth. Rabbi Leib called out to him, "Creature of darkness lurking here, to the wastes of Sodom disappear." For a moment the demon hesitated. Then he called back, "I will not move until you listen to what I have to say." "Who are you? What do you want?" "My name is Hormiza. It's Hormiza. It's a Hormiza, right? Yeah, it's Hormiza, yeah. I am devout servant of my mistress Kunigunde. She sent me to tell you that she is pining away for love of you. If you do not consent to marry her, she will avenge herself on all your friends and family. She has not the power to harm you, but she can do as she pleases with the others. However, if you agree to become her husband, she will give you half her treasures, bags full of gold and diamonds and other precious things. She will also build you a palace on Mount Seir, near Asmonde's own castle, and have you appointed one of his 7 counselors. 1,000 he-demons and she-demons will do your bidding. Instead of immersing yourself in the muddy little stream, You will be bathed in pools of balsam. Naamah herself will dance for you, together with her maids. You will drink 5,000-year-old wine from the cellars of Melchizedek. Ramizah would have continued, but Rabbi Leib intoned a holy name that he used only in cases of utmost need, and Kunigunde's messenger was forced to leave. As he spread out a pair of bat-like wings, he called, "Leib, think it over. I'll be back tomorrow." In the end, Kunigunde's witchcraft will conquer your incantations. He flew off, leaving behind him the smell of pitch, sulfur, and devil's dung. That night, Rabbi Leib could not sleep. He lit a candle, but the wind blew it out. From his chimney came the sound of whistling and laughter. Although he knew that Kunigunde could not harm him, he worried about his friends and relatives and about his beloved birds. He had to get rid of the witch once and for all. But how? The following night, when the demon chimney sweep appeared again on Rabbi Leib's roof, the rabbi said to him, "Ramizah, last night I could not sleep a wink, and I thought everything over. I came to the conclusion that Kunigunde is right. She and I together would be the mightiest pair in the world. Fly to your mistress and tell her that I am prepared to marry her." When Ramizah heard these words, he said, "It's a good thing you've come to your senses, my lord. My mistress Kunigunde planned to destroy your house, burn down the forest, dry up the stream, and that just as a start. Nobody is mightier or more beautiful. Together you will rule over man and beast." Ramizah departed at once to carry the good news to Kunigunde. Kunigunde wasted no time. She dressed in her best clothes, placed a diamond tiara on her head, and adorned herself with many precious bracelets and anklets. She mounted a broom with silver whisks and flew to Rabbi Leib's hut. Behind her came her retinue, creatures with pointed noses, twisted horns, long tails, ears reaching to their shoulders. A giant with a nose like a ram's horn carried a fat midget as round as a pot on his back. As they traveled along, they screamed, laughed, hooted, and blasphemed. Rabbi Leib, dressed in a white robe, stepped out of his hut to greet the bridal party. The entire company landed before him. Kunigunde said, "Leib, I forgive all the injustices you have committed against me. You are about to become my husband and I your wife. As soon as we are married, the forces of good will lose power, and you and I, with the help of the Satan, will be the lords of heaven and earth." "Kunigunde," Reb Leib replied, "I tried to resist your charms, but I could not. Do with me as you wish. My children, Put up the wedding canopy, Kunigunde ordered. 4 goblins at once brought forth a black canopy. Instead of 4 posts, it was supported by 4 snakes. From somewhere, the sound of caterwauling music started up. Hormiza gave away the bride. Another giant devil played the best man to Rabbi Leib. The wedding ceremony began at dawn, just before the sun rose. Kunigunde laughed to herself. She had already figured out how to destroy Rabbi Leib. But first, she had to learn his holy incantations, so as to deprive him of divine power. Gloatingly, she thought to herself, with all your wisdom, Leib, you're just a fool. One of the devils took out a black wedding ring and handed it to Rabbi Leib, who was to place it on Kunigunde's first finger. If he had done so, they would actually have become man and wife, and he would have been a slave of the netherworld forever. But instead of putting the ring on her finger, Rabbi Leib said, Kunigunde, my dear, before you become my wife, I want to give you a present. What kind of present? A golden locket that will endow you with powers in both the upper and the nether world. Allow me to hang it around your lovely neck. Kunigunde smiled smugly and said, Very well, Leib. Hang your locket around my neck. As she lowered her head to help him, that was all Rabbi Leib needed. The locket held the charm blessed by the saintly Rabbi Michael of Zlochev. Rabbi Leib placed the locket around Kunigunde's neck. Kunigunde turned to Hormiza to show off the precious gift and to gloat over Rabbi Leib's faith in her. But suddenly she let out a terrifying scream. The locket was burning into her flesh like a fire of hell. She tried to tear it from her neck, but her hands were powerless. Rabbi Leib had again managed to outwit the witch Kunigunde. When the devils and hobgoblins saw their mistress was powerless, they fled in fear. The evil ones are cowards at heart. Kunigunde remained alone. She fell on her knees and begged Rabbi Leib to remove the locket, promising him all the treasures in her possession. But Rabbi Leib had learned that there can be no compassion for creatures of the netherworld. He knew what had happened in olden times to Yosef de la Reina, the famous saint who had captured Satan and bound him in chains. Satan had begged for some snuff. When the Rabbi Yosef took pity and gave it to him, Satan turned the snuff into fire and melted the chains and enabled him to escape. Kunigunde thought, Kunigunde, although I have the power to destroy you, I have decided not to kill you, but send you to a place from which you will never be able to return. Then he incanted, Kunigunde, Ketef's daughter, to the land of Adma fly, and remain there till you die. Adma was one of the towns destroyed in the biblical times all together with Sodom and Gomorrah. In vain Kunigunde wept, implored, and made all kinds of promises. A strong wind swept her up in the air and carried her away as swift as an arrow flies from the bow. The locket fell from her neck, and she lost her power for all time. She lived out her life in the wasteland of Admah, not far from the place where Lot's wife had been turned into a pillar of salt. Without the protection of his mother, Kunigunde's son Bolvan became an ordinary thief. The police soon found the hidden cave where his loot was stored and arrested him. All the gold, precious stones, and stolen goods were returned to their rightful owners or to their heirs. Bolvan, bound in chains, died in prison while still waiting for his trial. From then on, Rabbi Leib lived in peace. The stream in which he immersed himself each morning was again crystal clear, and the birds gathered in front of his house to be fed. He supported the poor, cured the sick, and helped those who were possessed by evil spirits. As long as he lived, the black host stayed away from the forest. It was only after his death that they dared to return to try their old tricks. Soon after, a new saint appeared, the famous miracle worker Reb Baruch. You know who Reb Baruch is? Yes, I do know who Reb Baruch is. Yeah, Reb Baruch is the uncle of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Did you know that? Okay, the miracle worker Reb Baruch. And the ancient war between good and evil started all over again. And that, my friends, is where we are going to stop for this evening. Next week, we will tell some more stories. There's several stories about Hanukkah. What great timing that we have that we are going to have those stories right next week during Hanukkah. So, everybody, I hope you will return to be with us next week. And don't forget, tomorrow night, the Rabbi A and the Rabbi A are going to be here to discuss whatever it is they're going to discuss. What's it going to be the discussion about? Well, it's the discussion is called, would you like some wine with that? And that means, I guess you'll just have to watch and see. I guess we will. Okay. So anyway, and then the Wednesday night is the Torah study in depth with Rabbi A at 8 p.m. And don't forget, Friday night is Kabbalat, Shabbat, and Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. is Shachrit and Musaf. Until then, everybody, we shall simply say, Laila Tov.